helpful to political and global awareness on both former and current affairs, building community news revolutionary commitment of our world. All right, we move on to the news headline and updates. Live. Trump calls Supreme Court decision unifying and inspirational. U.S. Supreme Court ruling allows Trump to stay on primary ballots nationwide. Ruling set to allow Trump to stay on ballots nationwide. The U.S. Supreme Court's unanimous ruling overturning a decision by Colorado's top court that barred Donald Trump from the ballot for his involvement in January 6 will resolve the question of the former president's ability to run for office nationwide. The headline says it all. In a post on Truth Social following the Supreme Court's unanimous ruling allowing him to remain on presidential ballots, Donald Trump said, "Big win for America." For the reasons given, responsibility for enforcing Section 3 against federal office holders and candidates rests with Congress and not the states. The judgment of the Colorado Supreme Court therefore cannot stand. Big win for America, Trump says after Supreme Court allows him to keep running. Donald Trump says today's Supreme Court decision that he cannot be banned from Colorado's presidential ballot is both unifying and inspirational. Speaking to Fox News, Trump said, "A great win for America. Very, very important." He went on to highlight another legal case that is set to fall to the Supreme Court, that of presidential immunity. Equally important for our country will be the decision that they will soon make on immunity for a president, without which the presidency would be relegated to nothing more than a ceremonial position, which is far from what the founders intended. No president would be able to properly and effectively function without complete and total immunity. The Supreme Court will hear arguments in April on whether Trump is immune from being prosecuted on charges of trying to overturn the 2020 election. Trump had claimed that he was immune from all criminal charges for acts that he said fell within his duties as president. A U.S. Court of Appeals panel has already rejected Trump's argument. Republican National Committee Chair hails Trump ruling. The chairwoman of the Republican National Committee, RNC, which filed a brief in support of their party's frontrunner in this case, has hailed the court's ruling. Ronna McDaniel, who will be stepping down from her RNC post this month, says, "Today's ruling confirms what Republicans have been arguing. The American people get to pick their candidates, not activists or bureaucrats." McDaniel also describes the initial ruling from Colorado's top court to remove Donald Trump from the state's ballot as pure election interference from the left. "We look forward to continuing to fight and beat Democrats in court over the coming months." Trump allies line up to applaud Supreme Court ruling. Allies of Donald Trump are now taking to social media to show their support after the Supreme Court ruling. Republican Senator J.D. Vance, who was elected off the back of Trump's endorsement, describes it as a great ruling for our country and the rule of law. "In America, the people decide who the president is," he says. Representative Byron Donalds, from the hard-right flank of the Republican Party, says the Supreme Court has chosen the side of freedom. Colorado's ruling was an unprecedented display of rank political partisanship at the hands of unelected officials, he says. Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene says, "Trump stays on the ballot in communist states committing election interference by trying to block Americans from being able to vote for the candidate of their choice. Trump will go down in history as an insurrectionist plaintiff." The case against Donald Trump in Colorado was brought by Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, CREW, an ethics watchdog organization that considers itself nonpartisan. In an email to supporters, CREW President Noah Bookbinder takes solace in the ruling because, while the court stopped short of removing Trump from the ballot, they did not exonerate Donald Trump for inciting insurrection. The court had the opportunity to clear Trump of the finding that he incited insurrection, and the court chose not to. Instead, it simply ruled that states do not have the power to enforce Section 3 of the 14th Amendment unless Congress says they can, he goes on. Bookbinder says it is disappointing that the court faced a big test and failed to meet the moment. "They let Trump off the hook on a technicality," he writes, joining a list of institutions that has failed to step up and use the tools our Constitution provides to protect us from imminent threats to democracy. But in this ruling, there is a win for our democracy. Trump will go down in history as an insurrectionist. Colorado's Secretary of State disappointed by ruling. Colorado Secretary of State Jenna Griswold has released a statement on social media saying she is disappointed by the Supreme Court's decision that Colorado cannot disqualify Trump from its presidential primary. As a reminder, Griswold declined to unilaterally block Trump from the state's primary. The decision came from the state's Supreme Court. Griswold says the ruling strips states of the authority to enforce Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Colorado should be able to bar oath-breaking insurrections from our ballot, she says. Griswold has defended the legal procedures in Colorado that disqualified Trump, but has also expressed her personal views on the case. After the Supreme Court heard the case last month, she told reporters, "I don't believe that the presidency is a get-out-of-jail-free card, and I hope the justices hold him accountable." Court suggests states can kick candidates off local ballots, Matt Murphy, U.S. reporter. In the ruling, justices appear to suggest that states can still rely on the 14th Amendment to remove candidates for local elections from the ballot. The justices observe that while only Congress can strike candidates from federal ballots, historically states retain the power to remove those seeking statewide office. States did disqualify persons from holding state offices following ratification of the 14th Amendment, the justices wrote. That pattern of disqualification with respect to state, but not federal offices provides persuasive evidence of a general understanding that the states lacked enforcement power with respect to the latter. In practice, the court appears to be suggesting that Colorado has the power to strike candidates for governor or the state legislature under the 14th Amendment, but not those seeking federal offices such as election to the U.S. Senate, House, or the presidency. Colorado voters were ready for this outcome. Emma Vardy, reporting from Colorado. This won't come as a surprise to many voters in Colorado. Many here expected the Supreme Court to overturn Colorado's ruling, and in fact it will be welcomed by some voters on both sides of the political divide. At an ice hockey game in Denver, several ardent anti-Trump voters tell us that despite despising what he stands for, they still don't believe people should be denied the right to vote for him if they choose to. "I think we kick ourselves in the booty by taking someone off the ballot. Why force someone off a ballot?" shouts one woman in between cheers for the hockey. "I'm not a Trump fan, but the game still has to be fair. And if you win when it's not fair, then you haven't won." How the court's liberal wing disagreed, Sam Cabral, U.S. reporter. Justices Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson, who represent the Supreme Court's liberal minority, agreed that Colorado or any other state cannot unilaterally keep Donald Trump off the ballot. Allowing Colorado to do so would, we agree, create a chaotic state-by-state patchwork at odds with our nation's federalism principles. That is enough to resolve this case. But they argue that Tuesday's ruling seeks to decide novel constitutional questions to insulate this court and Trump from future controversy by announcing that a disqualification for insurrection can occur only when Congress enacts a particular kind of legislation. In doing so, the majority shuts the door on other potential means of enforcement, they write. "We cannot join an opinion that decides momentous and difficult issues unnecessarily, and we therefore concur only in the judgment." Why Justice Barrett agreed, but not entirely, Sam Cabral, U.S. reporter. Though the court's ruling is unanimous, the justices do not all agree on the way in which Section 3 of the 14th Amendment works and can be enforced. Justice Amy Coney Barrett joins her colleagues in the final decision, writing, "I agree that states lack the power to enforce Section 3 against presidential candidates. That principle is sufficient to resolve this case, and I would decide no more than that." But she makes clear that she is not on board with the question of whether federal legislation is the exclusive vehicle through which Section 3 can be enforced. "In my judgment, this is not the time to amplify disagreement with stridency. The court has settled a politically charged issue in the volatile season of a presidential election. Particularly in this circumstance, writings on the court should turn the national temperature down, not up," writes the Trump appointee in her brief opinion. "For present purposes, our differences are far less important than our unanimity." Justices ignore one aspect of Trump's claim, Matt Murphy, U.S. reporter. In their ruling, the 9 justices appear to have ignored one element of Donald Trump's case. that the 14th Amendment does not apply to the presidency. In his filing, Trump claimed that as the presidency was not listed among the officers of the United States set out in Section 3, the 14th Amendment could not be applied against him. Those filing against Trump had argued that the presidency is listed as an officer around 20 other times throughout the Constitution. While the ruling acknowledges that the Colorado Supreme Court disagreed with this argument in December, the justices avoided issuing a ruling on it themselves. Trump says court's decision is a big win for America. Donald Trump has just responded to the Supreme Court ruling that Colorado cannot disqualify him from its Republican presidential primary. Big win for America, Trump posted on Truth Social. Moments later, the former president sent out a fundraising email urging supporters to donate to his campaign. The unhinged Democrat plan to erase my name crashed and burned, but our fight to make America great again is far from over, the email read. Congress, not states, has enforcing power, court rules. We're combing through the text of the Supreme Court's decision, which says that it's Congress, rather than individual states, that has the power to enforce Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Section 3 bars federal, state, and military officials who have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the country from holding office again. The justices say, for the reasons given, responsibility for enforcing Section 3 against federal office holders and candidates rests with Congress and not the states. This line in the judgment reflects earlier skepticism around whether individual states should have the power to enforce federal provisions. This is First News Broadcast TV channel. Do us a favor to share to your friends and family, like and subscribe. We see you again.